All right. All right. Well, again, like I said, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Like I said, my name is Maria Elena. I'm an assistant director of financial aid here at Stockton. I'm also a two-time Stockton alum. And I'm super, super excited to talk to you. I'm super passionate about not only Stockton, but this topic, financing your Stockton education. It's one of the most important aspects of the college search process. How are we going to pay for it? So super excited to talk to you, hopefully give you some new information, tips, tricks, different things like that. Okay, so first what I like to do, and I do have this audience is very large and it's comprised of a lot of different people, but majority are looking to come in for the fall of 2026. And because of that, most of you have probably already applied for financial aid, but I don't want to skip that just because we do have some people who are thinking of coming in later terms, or maybe some people who haven't done the FAFSA yet or applied for financial aid. So I don't want to skip that. I am going to go over a little bit more briefly than some of my other presentations. I do have recordings of those on YouTube already. If you have questions about anything that maybe I don't touch upon here, but I'm going to try to make it pretty comprehensive. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is what type of aid is available and where does it come from? And then we're going to go over how do I apply for financial aid? And then we're really going to focus on determining costs and how to cover those costs, because I feel like that's probably where a lot of you are at this point. So I really want to focus on that as well. And then at the end, like I said, we will go over any questions that you guys have. Okay. So the sources of financial aid, that is where does our financial aid actually come from? So it comes from the federal and the state governments, the university, and private entities, okay? And they offer two different types of financial aid. They offer gift aid that comes in the form of grants and scholarships. So that's free money that does not have to be paid back. Everybody's favorite kind. All right, and then they also offer self-help aid. Self-help aid, probably the most common kind, comes in the form of loan options. So that's borrowed money that has to be repaid with interest, and then employment opportunities. So working and actually earning a paycheck. So those are the types of financial aid, or excuse me, the sources of financial aid. The different types from each source. Okay, I'm going to go over those next. So the federal government, pretty well rounded. They provide several different types of aid, including the federal Pell Grant, federal work study, and federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So gift aid and self-help aid from them. The state gives mostly gift aid in the form of grants. So we have the tuition aid grant. We also refer to that as TAG, the Garden State Guarantee, the Educational Opportunity Fund grant, and NJ Stars 1 and NJ Stars 2. You'll notice in financial aid, we have acronyms for a lot of things. Next, aid from the university. That includes grants like the Stockton Promise, which I'll talk about, and scholarships. Our scholarships are based on merit as well as extracurricular achievement. And then we have private aid. Private aid, like I mentioned earlier, would be any private scholarship or private loan from any entity other than the federal or state governments or the university. Something else I do just want to mention is that when we do offer students aid, it is offered based on full-time enrollment. Okay. Stockton scholarships. At Stockton, we reward academic success. For first-time applicants, we are looking not only at your high school transcripts, so grades and things like that, we are also looking at extracurricular achievement. So we want to know your work experiences, your volunteerism or community engagement, family responsibilities that you've had, school, community clubs, or organizations you're a part of, or just any other experiences that are meaningful to you, the student. We want well-rounded students. We want to see everything that makes you who you are, because it's not all about academics at the end of the day, to make you who a well-rounded student, okay? We're also looking at student essays and letters of recommendation when determining scholarship eligibility. For transfer applicants who have at least 16 or more earned transferable non-basic skills credits, as long as you have a minimum of a 3.4 GPA, you are considered for our transfer scholarships. And we are looking at transcripts from all previously attended schools, and then we'll use those to calculate your cumulative GPA. And there's more information, of course, on our website. If you go to stockton.edu/scholarships, we have a lot of good information on all of our aid programs and all of our processes on our website. So I definitely recommend checking that out just to kind of learn a little bit more. Okay. A couple scholarships that are supplemental to our first year and transfer merit scholarships include our housing scholarship for New Jersey residents, our out-of-state student scholarships, and our international student scholarships. So students are, again, automatically considered for these. First year students, you're considered through your common application. And then transfer students are considered through the Stockton application. But for these specific scholarships, students must meet GPA, enrollment, and residency requirements to receive them. So no additional information, just whatever's on your application. And if you meet those requirements, then you could receive these. Something else to note for these three specific scholarships is that students are required to reside on campus in order to receive these. So if you, do end up having one of these in your financial aid offer, you will have to live on campus to receive it. Okay, next I want to talk about the Stockton Promise. This is a super great program for New Jersey residents. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause 1 second. My computer's acting a little funny here. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so the Stockton Promise, this is a great opportunity for our students. It covers 100% of the gap between federal, state, and institutional financial aid, so grants and scholarships, and the cost of tuition and fees for qualifying students. The Stockton Promise is available to New Jersey residents with 0 to 59 earned credits, whose family adjusted gross income is between 0 and 65,000. So if you meet that criteria, then you'll automatically receive the Stockton Promise. No separate application for the Stockton Promise. You are just going to apply each year by filing a FAFSA or the New Jersey Alternative application, and that is for New Jersey Dreamer students. Okay, so again, no separate application. You'll just file those and we'll determine your eligibility. All right. The next is the Garden State Guarantee. This is very, very similar to the Stockton Promise. There's just a little bit of a difference. So with the Garden State Guarantee, this is a last dollar program created to assist New Jersey residents in affording the cost of their education. The Garden State Guarantee offers assistance covering the gap between a student's federal, state, institutional, and private grants and scholarships and the cost of their tuition and fees. It's available to New Jersey residents with 60 to 128 earned credits whose family adjusted gross income meets criteria outlined by the state of New Jersey. So unlike the Stockton Promise, the Garden State Guarantee is run through the state of New Jersey. It's their grant program. So they choose to include private scholarships in the calculation as well. So where the Stockton Promise takes your tuition and fees and subtracts any grants and scholarships that you're eligible for, institutional scholarships, and then covers that gap, the Garden State Guarantee actually also includes private grants and scholarships as well. So we would subtract that from your tuition and fees. And if there's a gap, then the Garden State Guarantee would cover that. It also is kind of a trailer to the Stockton Promise in that the Stockton Promise is typically available for first and second year students, and then the Garden State Guarantee would be more for third and fourth year students. Again, no separate application for the Garden State Guarantee. What you'll end up doing is filling out the FAFSA or New Jersey Alternative application, and then that's how we'll determine your eligibility. Okay, so now we know what aid is available and where that aid actually comes from. Now I want to talk about how to apply for financial aid just really briefly, even though I think most of you have probably already done this. Okay. So the very first step is going to be to complete the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, each year, and that determines your eligibility for federal, state, and some institutional aid programs. The FAFSA has typically been available each October 1st. Now it's required by law. So previously, it was almost always available by October 1st. And then they recently made an update a couple years ago, and we had to wait until I think it came out in January. So they were a little bit later with that implementation, but now by law it has to be available October 1st. So I would get in the habit of filling out the FAFSA soon after that launch. Okay, so typically like in the fall or like winter break, around that time, just so you get it done, you get it out of the way, you don't miss any deadlines. Next would be the application for New Jersey Dreamer students. So if you're not a New Jersey Dreamer, then you're not going to complete the alternative application, but if you are, then you will do the alternative application instead of the FAFSA, okay? That's your application for state and institutional aid eligibility. Okay, please note that HESA also determines stated eligibility for New Jersey residents who are U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens. So you can't really get away from HESA. They are going to determine your aid eligibility regardless of which application you fill out. Okay, so the steps to applying for financial aid: creating a studentaid.gov account, formerly an FSA ID. That's the very first step. Parents, if you already have one, either from yourself or from an older student or something like that, then you can use the same studentaid.gov account. Students will all need one though, individually. Okay, the next step is going to be actually completing the FAFSA. So what exactly is the FAFSA? As I mentioned, it's your application for all federal and state aid. It uses demographic and financial information, including family size and income and assets from the student and family, to determine a student's aid eligibility. So people will sometimes say, oh, well, can you tell me, this is my income, can you tell me how much aid I'm going to be eligible for? It's not that simple, because they do use a lot of different things to that go into the calculation. So family size, as well as your any income, so your adjusted gross income, your untaxed income, your investments, your business net worth, all those different things, child support received, everything kind of goes into it. Okay, like I said, application typically opens October 1st of each year. Stockton school code, you can search schools by name as well, but Stockton school code is 009345 for anybody who hasn't done the FAFSA yet. And if you haven't done it yet, and you are looking to come in for the fall of 2026 or spring of 2027, you'll complete the 26-27 FAFSA now. Those attending in fall of 2027 or spring of 2028 will complete the 27-28 FAFSA beginning October 1st. Okay. The FAFSA will use income and asset information, or excuse me, income information from 2 years prior. So the 26-27 FAFSA is looking at 2024 income information. Asset information will be current, but things we hope that you keep on hand at least. You don't necessarily have to, because the FAFSA does transfer a lot of information from the IRS, but in some cases that doesn't work. So it's best to have 1040s and W-2s and 1099s on hand, just in case you do have to enter anything manually. And then you're also going to need records of child support received, current balances of cash, savings, and checking accounts, and the net worth of investments, businesses, and farms. And like I said, the year does change each year. So for the 27-28 FAFSA, which is what any juniors in high school will be completing, that will require 2025 income information. One other thing I just wanted to point out here, because we do get a lot of questions on this and it can be complicated, is which parents are reported on the FAFSA. So all situations are different. Parents who are married or unmarried and living together, both parents are required on the FAFSA. Whereas parents who are divorced or separated, only one parent may be required on the FAFSA. The custodial parent is the parent who provides more than 50% of the student's financial support. So that's the parent who's going to be reported on the FAFSA. If both provide equal support, the parent with the greater income or assets is reported, okay? So one parent on the FAFSA, but if that custodial parent is remarried, then their spouse will also go on the FAFSA, even if they weren't married in the tax year the FAFSA is asking for. Okay. If you have any questions on that also, I'm glad to clarify or go over your like specific situation because it can get a little complicated. Okay. Next, determining state aid eligibility. So this is a big one. HESA, which is the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, they will get a copy of every student who's a New Jersey resident's FAFSA, and they'll determine their eligibility for state aid. You can only receive state aid if you go to a New Jersey school, but they will look at the FAFSA and they will make that determination for any student who's a New Jersey resident. You can view that eligibility and submit or view whatever requirements they may be asking for as well, because they can also ask for additional stuff at njfams.hesa.org. I do recommend that every student create an account there, even if maybe they don't need to submit documents and things. Then the next is going to be completing outstanding requirements, which I kind of alluded to just now with HESA. But after you apply for financial aid, that's not always exactly it. That's not always exactly the last step. It's usually almost never the last step. You may have something else that you have to do each year. So we will let you know if you have requirements. The ways that we do that include emails as well as text messages to students, okay? So it's super, super important that students are checking their emails. And I know we're all bombarded with a bunch of different things, but if anything comes from financial aid, super important that students are reading it or sending it to parents or just taking action on it, because we're not just typically telling you, oh, you know, we're having this event or something like that. Like it's something that's important that usually we need you to take action on, or at least we need you to be aware of, because so many things within higher ed have an impact on financial aid, or financial aid impacts those things. So super, super important. So please, parents, encourage your students to check their emails for anything from our office. Okay. So if students do have requirements, they're going to get an email and it's going to tell them to go to their Go Stockton portal. And within there, this is a screenshot of our financial aid tab of the portal. They will click on the financial aid requirements section there. And then after they put in the aid year, they will end up on a page that will list out every requirement that they have that's unsatisfied. And then it'll have a description with it as well as a link on how to complete that requirement. Super, super important, because you'll get an aid offer that says you're eligible for these things, but you're not going to receive them until you complete all of those requirements. Okay. So again, super important. Get those done early. Make sure that we're monitoring everything. HESA, like I said, could also request additional documentation. So just something else to keep an eye out for, emails from them. We also email students on behalf of HESA. So you're kind of getting a double whammy there. But please, please make sure that you look out for these things. Okay, now we've come to the part of the presentation we are going to talk about costs, okay? Obviously, this is a big thing for a lot of us. So one thing that I wish years ago they would have changed when they redid the FAFSA and everything with it is the name cost of attendance, because it can get a little confusing for students and families. The cost of attendance is comprised of direct costs as well as indirect costs, okay? Direct costs are things that you'll pay the university for. So things like tuition and fees and housing and a meal plan, okay? You can think of direct costs kind of as like an estimate of your bill, if you will. But the cost of attendance also includes indirect costs, which are things like books and supplies, transportation, other miscellaneous expenses, because it's going to cost more to go to school than just those direct costs, right? So students are going to have to purchase books and supplies for class. If you're commuting, you're going to have transportation costs. So there are different expenses that come up that we want you to think about. And that's why we include that in that cost of attendance. So again, it's not, when you look at it, your cost of attendance might look a little larger than maybe you were estimating your costs would be. And typically it's because it includes those indirect costs. And I'll kind of show you an example of that in a minute. Okay, so here is a chunk from our aid offer. Okay, this would be an estimate for a student living on campus. So we have your direct costs, your tuition, fees, housing, and food. So that's a total estimate of what those would be. And then we also list out how much free money you could receive as well. So any scholarships from the university, any grants that you might be eligible for, all of that will be in that section. So we'll total that as well. Okay. And again, like I said earlier, aid is offered for expected full-time enrollment. So just make sure you understand that as well, because aid could go down depending on the amount of credits that a student is in. If they're full-time, then they'll get full-time aid. Okay, so if we look at the very top of this here, we have the estimate of total direct costs at that 33,058 number. And then we subtract the total free money, which was $12,000 here. So your direct net costs are just about $21,058, okay? That's that estimate here. So that's an estimate of what you would end up owing the university after your financial aid has been applied to the bill, okay? Then we go into those indirect expenses. And we kind of do some other calculations here to give you net costs and things like that. But most students and families want to know, what am I going to owe the school? So when you're looking at aid offers, you can take a look at those direct net costs. And that's really what you're going to end up having to kind of budget for and look into other options to pay. Okay. I also just wanted to go over our bill estimator because this is a really great tool that I really want to see students and families utilizing. So again, we give you estimates in your aid offer, but we give you an estimate based on all different housing options, not maybe the one specifically that you're looking at. So you can actually customize your experience, if you will, on this bill estimator, okay, and estimate your direct costs per semester. All right, whatever you'll get, whatever cost you get. So see, I did here a commuter student. So there was no housing, and then we just have that small Osprey Connect meal plan. So it's $8,828 as an estimate for the fall semester. So what we would have you do is take that cost, multiply it by 2 to determine your direct costs for the year, that estimate of those, and then subtract any free money that you were offered from financial aid. And that will help you determine your gap for the year. When I say gap, that is what you may end up owing the university after all aid is applied to your bill. You can access the bill estimator at stockton.edu/bursars. And then there's links within there under tuition and fees to actually view that bill estimator and play around with that. You can select all the different housing options. First year students have specific ones that they can live in. But the coolest thing here is that under that housing option, it'll actually tell you what meal plans you can choose from. So you can kind of get an estimate of those things as well. So super helpful tool when it comes to estimating costs. Okay. In your aid offer, we will also include other ways that you can pay your expenses, including federal direct loans, okay? Majority of students are going to be offered federal direct loans to help cover their costs. They're usually not enough to cover the whole gap, but we usually recommend that students utilize these first if you are going to borrow above private loans or other types of loans, just because the interest on these loans is typically lower than majority of private loans. And it can save you money to borrow this and another loan, which I'll go over that after. All right, just another example of cost of attendance versus aid and the gap. So your cost of attendance, your direct costs, your indirect costs, there's your financial aid. So then we have a gap. Of course, if you're not looking at those indirect ones, you'd cut that top part off, but you still have a gap that you have to fill. All right. So now how do we cover those costs? How do we cover that gap? All right, several ways to do this. The very first, reducing costs, obviously the best one because it's not going to cost you anything. Scholarships, saving and making payments, and then borrowing. So reducing your costs. This is obviously a great one, like I said, because it doesn't cost you anything. So consider a couple of the following options. All right, maximizing credits. So consider taking additional credits each semester or taking summer classes in order to graduate early. If you're here less time, you're going to pay less money. So that's just something to think about. We have a flat rate tuition here at Stockton where you can take between 12 and 20 credits for the same price. So if you take advantage of that, typically students are taking 16 credits a semester to graduate within 4 years. So if you go ahead and take that 20, you take some summer classes, you could end up graduating early. And then, that's obviously, like I said, going to reduce your costs because you're not here as long. And then choosing cheaper options. So is there a cheaper housing option? Is there a cheaper meal plan option? Looking into renting textbooks instead of purchasing them. I went and purchased all of mine, and unfortunately they're still sitting in my basement. I should get rid of them. But I haven't looked at them since. So just something to think about, or a few things to think about, in order to reduce whatever costs you may incur. Scholarships, one of my favorites. They are everywhere, so apply for as many as you can. Remember this. I know it's annoying to have to apply to a bunch of different scholarships. It's very time consuming. Unfortunately, nothing in life is free. So you are putting in the work. But if you're able to secure those scholarships, that can save you a lot of money. Even a couple $100s can really, really make a difference. So where can we find scholarships? Local organizations, for example, your local Rotary Club. The student on the left there applied for a scholarship with his local Rotary Club, and he received a laptop. So that cut down on that indirect expense of purchasing a laptop. Scholarship search sites. So FastWeb, for example, is a great one. You can search for anything that interests you. There's a scholarship for people who are left-handed. There's things out there for everybody. And FastWeb is a good one to search for, but there are also other ones out there as well. Please just note with any private scholarships, you want to look out for scams, of course. These aren't necessarily, they're not vetted by Stockton or anything like that. So anybody that's asking for you to pay to apply for a scholarship or asking for like your social or something, that is not a legitimate scholarship. So definitely don't apply for anything like that. So just be cautious, and ask if you are unsure. Okay. Another huge one for incoming students from high school is ask your high school guidance counselors. Okay. So often organizations like in your town or surrounding areas or whatever will go to high schools and say, I want to offer 1, 2, 3, 5 students scholarships from our organization. And a lot of times students are not applying for these because, again, like I said, I understand it takes a lot of time to do this. And when you're a senior, you don't want to spend like your spring, your last little bit of high school applying for all of these. But if you do, it will set you up for success in the future. Okay. Jumping off of high school guidance counselors, ask your teachers if you are a transfer student from a community college or just another college. Ask your professors or mentors, anybody who is a mentor to you or anything like that. The worst that anybody can say is no, I don't know. But you could miss out on something just by not asking. So another super important area where you can look. Students and parents, employers as well. So the student on the right here worked at Chick-fil-A, and she received a $25,000 scholarship. She applied and received that from Chick-fil-A. Not everybody is as generous as them. However, there are opportunities for students through their employers. So again, the worst thing they can say is no. Definitely ask. Parents, employers as well. I've seen a lot of students come in with scholarships from their parents' employers. So parents, check with HR, see if they offer anything, any type of benefit for your student. Also, wait, real quick before I move on to the last thing I have on there. Students as well. Sometimes things might not come exactly in the form of a scholarship. Some employers will also offer tuition reimbursement, where you put out that money, and then if you get a certain grade, you'll actually get that money back. So the employer will reimburse you for that. So another good option as well. And then the last thing I want to talk about are Stockton Foundation scholarships. So once you are a Stockton student and you have your first semester under your belt and you have a Stockton GPA, you can apply for our foundation scholarships. And what those are a collection of scholarships that we have here at Stockton because donors have given money to Stockton to say, I want to support students, anything ranges. They might have certain criteria like, oh, in this major or, seeking whatever degree or things like that. But some are general as well. Some are for books or some are just to help students with their costs. So that's another super great program that we have here at Stockton. So like I said, once you have your Stockton GPA, the application typically becomes available late January, early February, and then you are applying at that point for the following year. So your second year here at Stockton, you'd be applying for. But another great resource, don't miss out on those. It's one application for hundreds of different scholarships. It's a pretty simple application, and then you just need a letter of recommendation from a faculty member. So again, don't miss out on something like that because that's super, super important. Okay, saving and making payments always seems like an obvious one, but I like to put it in here. I don't want to skip over it. So any contribution you can make towards your education now is going to save you money later. Okay, working a part-time job could help cover some expenses. That's not always feasible for everybody, but those are options. Okay. Also, Stockton bills per semester. So we went over that bill estimator and I showed you it shows your costs per semester, and then you would double it, take away your aid, all of that. But if you want to enroll in a payment plan, you are billed per semester every time anyway. But you can do a payment plan up to 5 payments, and it would take your semester bill divided into 5, and then you can make payments each month towards that balance. You can also use the other options I'm going to talk about as well and do payment plans. So say you can afford to contribute $1,000 over the course of the semester. So we break that into 5 payments, and then you'd pay your $200 every month. And then maybe you get a loan for the rest, or whatever the case is. So very flexible. You can use a lot of different options. Okay, especially because everybody's probably least favorite option is up next, borrowing. There are a few different loan options for students for education loans. And I do want to say, I know that a lot of people are scared of this option, or don't love this option. And I get it. The best option is, of course, to pay, get somebody else to pay for it. So free money, scholarships and stuff like that, or grants and things. But a lot of students do have to borrow. They do have to take out money to fund their education. Okay. So we talked about those federal direct loans earlier. There are also private or alternative education loans. So those are going to come from banks, credit unions, anybody like that. They are going to be the ones that lend you private loans. Okay. And then the Parent Direct Plus loan is another option as well. For anybody who has never borrowed a Parent Plus loan before, you have new limits. Okay. That's probably almost all of you in the audience, because it is per child that these limits qualify for. Okay, so Parent Plus loans, new annual limit, $20,000 per child. At Stockton, we are putting in place a limit of $16,250 per semester, so that students don't run out of eligibility before they finish their 4th year, because the new aggregate limit, meaning your new lifetime limit as a parent borrower, is $65,000 per child. Okay, so if you do the math, 20,000 times 4, that's 80, not 65. So that's why we're putting that in place, that 16,250 per academic year. So just some things, again, to keep in mind. Sometimes parents will go with the Parent Plus loan because maybe they could get a better interest rate than their student could on a private loan, or they just want to help their student out, which is fine. But just keep in mind those new limits there. The biggest thing with borrowing is not to be afraid of it, just to be informed and to be responsible about it, okay? So understand interest rates and repayment. Don't over borrow. So don't borrow more than you need, definitely. Just be educated about it. I know it's a big deal, and students are going to lean on, families a lot. And if they don't have that support, or for anybody in general, we're here to help as well. We can't recommend any lenders or anything like that, but we can kind of support them through the process and help everybody kind of understand interest and repayment and all that. I like to put this example in here because I think it really helps some students and families to understand interest. So this example is that your total cost for the year, now this is just estimated everything. This isn't anything, or this is just an example. Like, none of these costs are real, okay? But just say your total costs for the year are $30,000 and you received $10,000 in free money. You're unable to make payments, so now you need to borrow the rest, which would be $20,000 in loans. 20,000 minus that 5,500 would leave you at 14,500. 5,500 at the 6.39% interest rate, which is the rate this academic year for those federal direct loans. That's going to end up costing you $7,457.28 over 10 years, which is a standard repayment. Then 14,500 at a 9.99% interest rate, which is kind of the middle ground for education loans. There are some lenders, some private lenders that have interest rates that are less than that. But there are also some that are higher as well, and some can be significantly higher. So the 14.5, that will cost you $45,770.67 over 30 years. The quicker you repay your loan, the less you will pay. So that number would change if you paid it off more quickly, okay? So the total to repay there would be $53,227.95. Or a lot of times I'll have students and parents come to me and say, I don't want to borrow more than one loan. I just want to borrow one loan for everything. And I discourage that if you are borrowing at all, because this $20,000 at 9.99% interest will cost you $63,131.95 over 30 years. Okay. The difference there, you didn't borrow any more by borrowing one private loan instead of the private loan and the federal loan. You're going to pay $9,904 more because you decided to borrow one loan instead of the two. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand interest a little bit, encourages you that if you are going to borrow, those federal loans are a good option to start with. And then the lower the interest rate you get, obviously, the better it's going to be for you. You're going to end up paying less back. And the quicker that you pay off the loan, the less you're going to pay back as well. Okay, so just things to keep in mind to think about. All right. Pretty much wrapping up here, but I do just want to promote our social media channels. You can follow us at Stockton FinAid for tips, tricks, reminders, and other important information, different deadlines and things like that we put on there. Some fun stuff as well. I have something fun planned for tomorrow for one of our deadlines coming up. But we just put out a lot of good information. So if you would like, please feel free to give us a follow. We do also tweet scholarship opportunities that we do vet. So that's another good thing if you want to go on there and search through. You can view those as well. And then just some helpful resources on here that I will leave on here for a minute. We have federal student aid, so their contact information, the state, so HESA, and then our financial aid office as well. We are here to help with whatever questions that you have, whatever you need, okay? So there is our website, our phone number, and then you can also schedule a phone appointment or an in-person appointment with us, and we are glad to go over whatever questions that you have, okay? And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you do apply. We are accepting applications for the fall of 2026 for first year and transfer applicants. So make sure that you do that at stockton.edu/apply. And like I said, definitely explore our website as well. We have a lot of good information and resources on there. We also offer in-person and virtual tours for anybody that either hasn't been to campus and wants to see it, or you have and you want to come back. We'd be glad to welcome you back for a tour. So more information is available online at stockton.edu/visit. All right, and that pretty much wraps up the presentation portion. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. And I am going to go through the chat and I will answer whatever questions everybody has here.
Hey, anything with a check with a thumbs up, I answered.
Give me 1 second. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my audio here, so just give me 1 second. Okay, so sorry about that. I was having some issues with my computer, so I switched offices. All right. So the very first question, I know that Jovina had answered a few. Our director was here tonight as well. She's going to be in the chat answering a few more as well, but I'm going to answer some that haven't been answered. So does the 16,250 per kid per year Parent Plus limit apply to students transferring in with credits from 2 years of community college? So we'll have to double check on exactly if you've borrowed a Parent Plus loan before. They haven't been super, when I say they, the Department of Education hasn't been super specific with rules just yet. Some people are grandfathered into old rules, but it's if they've borrowed within their program that they're currently in. So that one we'll have to double check on to see. May end up having to wait for some more information from the Department of Ed because we don't really have that information just yet. Okay. There's something asking to send the link for the recording. I will definitely do that at the end of the presentation. There's a question about NJ Stars. So NJ Stars, if you go to a community college and you're NJ Stars 1 eligible, then you could receive NJ Stars 2 as long as you meet the GPA requirements at Stockton. So that would be for transfer students really after you've earned your associate's degree at a community college. Somebody's asking if we can explain more about the federal work study program. 1 second, this moved real quick on me. Okay. Federal work study is a need-based financial aid program. It's also very limited in the amount of funding that the school receives from the federal government. So the federal government will give each school money to give to students for work study. So we offer it to as many students as we can with the aid that we're given from the federal government. But if we don't have enough funding from the government, then we're not able to offer it to everybody who's eligible for it. So eligible students will receive work study funding or that fund within their aid offer. But if you have any questions or anything, or you want to be added to our wait list, you can reach out to the office and we would do that for you. And then as funding becomes available, if either students don't accept it or, students who are returning, because we give it to returning students first, don't want it, then we would offer it to new students as well. So I would definitely join that wait list. And there is more information on our website. If you go to Stockton's main site and you search federal work study, there is actually information on there on how to join, indicate your interest, which is joining the wait list. Okay, there's another question about how and when do you pay for loans after applying? The federal direct loans that I mentioned, those are automatically deferred for a student, so they do not require payment while the student's in school. Okay, both those federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Students also get a 6-month grace period for either when they stop attending, drop below half-time enrollment, or graduate. So say a student ends up graduating this May, they get 6 months before they actually have to start repayment on that loan. Other loans, I can't say specifically. The Parent Plus loan, I can say you can choose to either pay it while the student's in school or defer it until after. Interest is going to accrue on the Parent Plus loan though, and the unsubsidized loan while the student's in school. So some students and families will choose to pay the interest while the student's in school. You don't have to do that, but it definitely helps, interest not accrue so much. And then private loans, I can't really say specifically for private loans. At Stockton, we don't have a preferred lender agreement, so we can't recommend any lenders to you. But what we do have is a historic list. On our website, if you go to Stockton's main site and you search financial aid, there's a link for education loans. And you'll navigate to private loans and you'll be able to view that list. And that is everybody who Stockton students have borrowed from within the last 3 years. And you'll be able to see all of the different terms. So interest rate minimums and maximums, if there's a grace period or not, when repayment starts, all of that good stuff. So you'll be able to kind of see that on there. You don't have to go with anybody on that list though. You can go with whoever you want if you're looking at a private loan. But that kind of helps you, get started and see what the different rates and stuff are. Because some people are a little surprised to see how high education loan rates can be. Okay, somebody else asked, can we attend community college and then transfer to Stockton? Yes, you could definitely do that. You would just apply as a transfer student. Okay. There's another one here I'm going to answer privately, so I'm going to take your information and I'll answer privately. Um, we received school and state award info. However, we don't know about federal. How or where do we obtain info if any awards were given at the federal level? So typically we will send a financial aid offer to students once we receive their FAFSA, and that will include federal, state, and institutional aid. So if you did get that offer from Stockton and it didn't include anything federal, you should be eligible for loans at least. But you may not be eligible for grant funding. But I would encourage you to reach out to our office so that we can kind of look at it with you just to make sure everything looks okay, that you've, been considered for all of that, that we've completed like your aid offer and all of that. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to the school if you have any questions on anything ever. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you guys. Details on where students can look for on-campus jobs. So whether you're work study or not, you can utilize this platform that we have at Stockton called Handshake. So once you are admitted to Stockton, you get your Go Stockton portal credentials, and then you'll be able to log into Handshake. So you can just go to Stockton site and search that word. And then you'll be able to see on-campus employment opportunities for work study and non-work study students. So there are some offices on campus that do hire non-work study students. They hire them out of their own like office budget and things like that. So that's an option as well. You can also, once you're here at Stockton, you can also kind of ask around. Networking really helps too. Get in with whatever office maybe something interests you, like, if you want to do like marketing or something, you can check with our marketing department, things like that, if they have like a student worker position. So networking is a big thing as well. For that Parent Plus loan question, no previous Parent Plus from community college. So that would mean then that you would fall into um, the new rules. So you would have the 16,250 per semester, and then the 65,000 aggregate limit. Somebody said my stepmom mentioned some colleges have leftover scholarship money. Does Stockton do this, or is there a way for me to get a bigger merit scholarship? If you feel that maybe we can reevaluate you, if you've done some additional like extracurriculars or things, or your GPA has gone up, you can absolutely complete a scholarship appeal. That's available on the admissions portal, so that we could reevaluate you for your scholarship eligibility. But there are certain criteria that you'd have to meet, so we can definitely reevaluate for things like that. Does the Stockton Scholarship offer include housing finance? So all aid is applied to the bill. There's only certain aid that goes to specific things. So like the Stockton Promise would go specifically to tuition and fees and things like that. But for somebody who say has full Pell, full tag, a scholarship, and that's more than the cost of tuition and fees, that can go into paying some of your housing costs as well. And then we do have those housing scholarships that we offer, the housing scholarship for New Jersey residents, and then the out-of-state and international student scholarships as well. Another question, do you know when EOF will send information about applications? Soon, very soon. We're reviewing them. So keep an eye out for information on those. Somebody asked, what is the difference between federal subsidized loans versus the Parent Plus? So I'll actually go over the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and then the Parent Plus loan as well. Okay. So subsidized loans, the interest does not accrue while the student's in school. So that's a need-based fund. You have to have financial need, which is a separate calculation. But that one does not accrue interest while the student's in school. Unsubsidized loans, the interest does accrue while the student's at school. It accrues as soon as the funds disperse, like most private loans, or Parent Plus loans. Parent Plus loan, the same thing. The interest will start accruing as soon as the funds are dispersed and until it's repaid. The Parent Plus loan interest rate was, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was close to 9%, I want to say, this year. And the federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loan interest rate was 6.93. So significantly less. So I would always recommend, if you're borrowing, to borrow the loans with the lower rates with the best terms for you. And that loan has a low rate, the federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And then you can look into those other options like the Parent Plus and private loans. How much a financial aid covers dorm fees and a meal plan? It really depends on your specific aid offer. We bill you, and then your aid is applied to that bill. It's not, like I mentioned earlier, it's not all applied to specific things. There are only certain funds that are applied specifically to like housing or meals or things like that. Okay, for families who don't qualify for specific need-based aid, what forms of support or flexibility are most commonly used? Um, I would say the two biggest pieces after scholarships and grants would be payment plans and loans. Apply for as many private scholarships as you can. Okay, that's my first thing. And then you want to look at how much can I afford to pay out of pocket, if anything, and then take a loan for the rest if you have to borrow. Okay, that would be my advice, and that would be the order that I would do things. Anything you can contribute now will obviously save you money later. So even if it's a small amount each semester that you can contribute, I would definitely do that. There's another question about summer. How does Stockton summer courses save money over time if it's additional tuition? It depends. It depends. There is a discount for students who take summer classes who live on campus. So if there's certain incentives like that, you can also receive aid in the summer sometimes. If you we do we bill per credit in the summer, so I mean I have to have the exact calculations in front of me, but you wouldn't necessarily be here as long. And also when I say that too, if you're taking 20 credits a semester, you may only have to take 1 or 2 classes in the summer in order to help you graduate early, so that could end up saving you money, really, that flat rate. So I'd have to sit there and do the math for you, but there are other options to help cover summer costs. You wouldn't necessarily just be paying out of pocket. And you also have to think about, just like everything else, tuition and fees can go up each year. So if you're paying last year's price because you took summer classes last year, you're not paying the increase for the year that you're graduating early or something like that. To be eligible for the Stockton Promise, do you take into consideration the gross income or the taxable one? We look at adjusted gross income. That's what we take a look at. Somebody asked about if they want to focus on animation, what scholarships would be best to apply for. So I would utilize like those external sites that I mentioned, like FastWeb is a good one. And I would search for any of you, whatever you think your major career path is going to end up being, I would search for things like that. I'm sure that there are plenty of scholarships out there for each major and each thing, even if it's something like niche that you want to do or that you like to do. I would search for things like that. The latest date to apply for a scholarship appeal. Right now, there's not a specific deadline. Your scholarship will not be adjusted after you start attending. So once you actually start classes, the scholarship is what it is, but you can submit information like new transcripts and things like that up to when you begin classes. Is the Stockton out-of-state scholarship guaranteed, and how do I apply? There are eligibility criteria for that scholarship. You have to have a certain GPA, and then obviously be an out-of-state student. And then if you are awarded it, then it is guaranteed for a certain amount of semesters. For new students, it would be 8 semesters. For transfers, it would be 6 semesters. As long as you maintain the eligibility criteria, which is living on campus, completing a FAFSA. You have to be full-time, you have to maintain consecutive enrollment. And I'm missing one, GPA. You also have to maintain a certain GPA. Again, somebody asked about working on campus. So I would utilize Handshake. You can search stockton.edu/handshake on our website to search for on-campus employment. And then also, like I mentioned, networking as well to see what other offices may or individuals may be hiring. Does Stockton help students with internships so they have experience in their field? Yes. A lot of the schools have internship placements and things like that. We also have the Office of Career Education and Development that can also assist students with networking and with being able to get internships and things like that. So yes, and also I keep saying networking, but when you're at Stockton, network with your professors and things like that, because a lot of them actually work in the field or have worked in the field, so they know people. So networking is a huge thing. Can I still go home for the summer with the out-of-state scholarship? Yes. Oh, I just see that was answered. Yes, you can. Somebody asked me to repeat the office name. I think they were asking about career education and development. If you just search career on Stockton's website, it will also come up. We have a really good site where you can search like little keywords, and you'll get to where you want to be typically. I use it all the time. How significant is the discount for summer classes? I I think I know, but I don't want to give the exact. So if you go to, I'll put this website in here really quick. If you go to stockton.edu/summer, oh, and Jovina just put the link in there as well. You'll be able to see all information about summer and I'll give you that exact discount. All right, I think that was the last question. You guys are all very welcome. I apologize for the technical issues I was having that slowed me down a little bit in the beginning and I had to switch offices, but thank you for bearing with me. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you all so much for taking the time out of your night to be here. I did have one other question, which I will mention because I don't know that I really touched on this. If students receive a scholarship, an admissions scholarship, it is good for first year students. It is good for 8 semesters or until graduation, whichever comes first. And for transfers, 6 semesters or graduation, whichever comes first. Okay. So those scholarships are guaranteed as long as you meet the eligibility criteria. That's all outlined in the admissions letter, and then it's also available on the website as well. Okay. If you have any questions or anything on any of that, you can always contact the office, but they are automatically added to student accounts each year as long as they maintain the eligibility criteria. All right. Think pretty good here. I see a question from Cece. If you want to stay back, I will message you privately about that question. But everybody else, if there's no other questions, you are all free to go. Thank you again, like I said, for being here tonight. We really, really, really appreciate it. And please always feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about anything. We are here to help. We enjoy helping you guys. We want to make sure that you, are making the best decisions for you, and that you're guided in the best way. Yeah, all right. You know what I'm also gonna do, which I think Jovina may have done this, but I'm gonna put our email in here as well. If you have any questions that maybe accidentally didn't get answered or something like that, you can email our office and we'll be glad to help. All right, thank you guys very much. I am going to answer this one question here. If you asked a question, a second. I'll still answer some, but if you don't feel like staying, you don't have to. Because there are a few more trickling in here. Are all New Jersey do all New Jersey students have housing or is it need-based? So everybody can live on campus. There's no like, there's room for everybody. So everybody can live on campus. The housing scholarship is specific though. There's like a GPA requirement and things like that, but it's not necessarily need-based. It's not financial need-based anyway. So if you don't have that and you think you qualify based on the criteria on the website, then I would suggest reaching out to us. There's no difference between financial.aid and finaid at Stockton EDU. They're the same email, they'll go to the same place. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Like I said, I'm going to stay back and answer one question here, but you are all free to go. Thank you very much for attending. Have a great night.